You're sitting in a group and everyone agrees on something you think is wrong. But instead of speaking up, you nod along. You pretend to agree even though you don't. You're not weak or dishonest. You're experiencing normative conformity, and it's making you abandon your own beliefs just to avoid standing out. Imagine you're in a meeting and your boss suggests an idea you think is terrible. Everyone else nods and says it's great. You know it won't work. You have valid concerns. But you stay silent or even agree because speaking up would make you the odd one out. This is normative conformity. When you go along with a group not because you actually agree, but because you want to fit in and avoid social rejection. You're not changing your private beliefs. You're just publicly pretending to agree because disagreeing feels too risky. And this is happening way more often than you realize. Normative conformity is when you conform to group norms and opinions not because you believe they're correct, but because you want to be accepted by the group and avoid being rejected or seen as difficult. You know what you really think. You haven't been persuaded to change your mind. But you go along with the group anyway because the social cost of disagreeing feels too high. You're choosing social acceptance over expressing your actual beliefs. This happens because humans are deeply social creatures who evolved in small groups where rejection could mean death. Your brain is wired to detect social threats and avoid them. When you're the only person disagreeing with a group, your brain sends danger signals. You feel anxious and uncomfortable. Going along with the group relieves that anxiety even though you're compromising your integrity. The fear of rejection and desire for acceptance override your commitment to your own beliefs. The problem is normative conformity makes groups make worse decisions. If everyone is privately hiding their doubts and publicly agreeing, bad ideas never get challenged. Mistakes don't get caught. Groupthink takes over, and individually you end up living inauthentically, constantly suppressing what you actually think to maintain social acceptance. You become a yes person who never rocks the boat, even when the boat is heading toward disaster. Let me show you where this causes damage. Workplace meetings are full of normative conformity. A leader proposes something. People have concerns but don't want to seem negative or difficult. So everyone agrees. The plan moves forward even though multiple people privately think it's flawed. Then it fails, and everyone wonders why nobody spoke up. Normative conformity silenced all the dissent that could have prevented the failure. Social situations demonstrate this constantly. A group of friends is making plans to do something. You don't really want to do it, but everyone else seems enthusiastic, so you go along. You don't want to be the buzzkill who ruins everyone's fun. You're conforming to maintain your social standing, even though you'd prefer doing something else. This happens so routinely that you might not even consciously recognize you're disagreeing. You automatically conform before you even fully process your own opinion. Political discussions show normative conformity clearly. You're in a group where everyone shares certain political views. You have some different opinions, but you don't express them because you don't want to be seen as the enemy or get into an argument. So you nod along or stay silent while everyone reinforces each other's views. Your silence looks like agreement, but privately you're thinking something different. Fashion and trends are driven partly by normative conformity. People wear things or adopt styles not because they personally love them, but because that's what everyone else is doing, and they don't want to stand out as unfashionable. They're conforming to social norms about appearance to maintain acceptance, not expressing genuine preferences. School and academic settings create normative conformity pressure. A teacher or professor states something as fact. You think it might be wrong, or you have questions. But asking would mean questioning authority in front of everyone, making you seem difficult or not smart enough to understand. So you stay silent and conform to the apparent consensus even though you're confused or disagree. Peer pressure is basically normative conformity. Your friends are all doing something risky or that you don't want to do, but you do it anyway because refusing would make you seem uncool or cowardly. You're conforming to avoid social rejection even though you know better. This drives countless bad decisions, especially in teenage years when social acceptance feels absolutely critical. Online behavior shows this too. You see posts where everyone in the comments agrees on something. You have a different view, but you don't comment because you do not want to get attacked or be the lone dissenter. You privately disagree, but publicly remain silent, which makes the apparent consensus look even stronger and pressures others into similar silence. Corporate culture creates powerful normative conformity. Companies develop cultures with certain beliefs and ways of doing things. Employees who privately disagree still go along because challenging the culture feels dangerous for their career. Conformity maintains the status quo even when the status quo is dysfunctional. So how do you resist normative conformity? How do you stay true to your beliefs instead of just going along? First, recognize the feeling of normative conformity pressure. When you notice yourself agreeing with something you don't believe, or staying silent when you want to speak up, recognize that as conformity pressure. Awareness is the first step to resisting it. Second, remember that others might be conforming too. When everyone seems to agree, some of them might be privately disagreeing just like you. You might not be as alone as you think. Speaking up could give others permission to express their real views too. Normative conformity creates false consensus that makes disagreement seem rarer than it is. Third, find low-stakes ways to practice dissent. Start by expressing different views in situations where the social cost is low. Practice disagreeing with friends on minor things. This builds your tolerance for being the dissenter and reduces the anxiety that drives conformity. Fourth, use diplomatic disagreement techniques. You don't have to attack the group to express a different view. I see it differently, or can I offer another perspective, or I have a concern about this, are ways to dissent without being combative. Disagreement doesn't require being disagreeable. Fifth, privately validate your own views. Just because you're not expressing dissent publicly doesn't mean you have to let the group change what you privately believe. Maintain your own perspective internally, even if you're conforming externally. This preserves your integrity even when circumstances make open disagreement too costly. Sixth, seek out or create spaces for honest discussion. Some environments punish dissent more than others. Find or build relationships and groups where different views are welcomed. Having some spaces where you can be authentic reduces the cost of conformity in spaces where you have less choice. Seventh, consider what you're sacrificing through conformity. Constant normative conformity means never expressing your real self, never challenging bad ideas, never standing for what you believe. That has long-term costs to your integrity and to the quality of group decisions. Sometimes the cost of conforming is higher than the cost of dissenting. Normative conformity is making you publicly agree with things you privately disagree with. You're not being persuaded or changing your mind. You're just going along to fit in and avoid rejection. This happens constantly in meetings, social situations, online interactions, and anywhere groups form opinions. The pressure to conform is so strong that you often don't even consciously notice you're doing it. This creates problems at both individual and group levels. Individually, you're living inauthentically and suppressing your real beliefs. Your social self and private self are out of sync. You're a yes person who never expresses genuine disagreement. At the group level, normative conformity prevents good ideas from being challenged and creates false consensus. Bad decisions don't get stopped because everyone who sees the problems stays silent to maintain acceptance. Understanding normative conformity helps you recognize when you're conforming. It helps you see that others might be conforming too, so apparent unanimity might be fake. It helps you understand the social pressure you feel to agree is not a sign you're wrong. It's just the pressure to conform. The next time you find yourself nodding along with something you don't agree with, recognize normative conformity at work. Ask yourself if you're agreeing because you actually agree, or because disagreeing would make you stand out. Consider whether speaking up is worth the social cost. Sometimes conforming is the practical choice, but do it consciously. knowing that you're choosing social acceptance over expressing your real beliefs. Don't confuse going along with the group with actually believing what the group believes. Your conformity is making bad ideas seem like good ideas and silencing the dissent that could improve decisions. Break the pattern when you can. Speak up when it matters. Be willing to be the one person who sees things differently. That's how you maintain integrity and how groups make better decisions. Subscribe to learn about more group biases controlling your behavior and beliefs.